begin our service. There's a passage from the book of Isaiah that begins as follows. Kol omer kra, v'omar ma ekra. A voice says, cry out, and I say, what shall I cry? Kol habasar chatzir v'kol chasdo ketzitz hasadeh. For indeed, all flesh is as grass. Its beauty is like the flower of a field. The grass withers and the flower fades. Surely people are like unto the grass, but it is that which is lasts forever, the word of God and the word of our loved ones. For our psalmist asserts, the David Mizmor, Ladonai haaretz u'melo'o, teva v'yoshveva. The earth is the Lord's and all its fullness. The world is God's and all that is in it. For he founded the world upon the seas, set it firm upon flowing waters. And so when we ask, who may ascend the mount of the Lord, and who may stand in his holy place? The answers are firm and resolute. One who has clean hands and a pure heart, takes not God's name in vain, does not swear falsely. For such a generation shall receive the blessing of the Lord. For when the psalmist asks, Adonai mi yagur ba'ohelecha, mishkon b'har kodshecha, who, O God, may dwell in your holy place? Who may dwell in your sanctuary? The answer is always a firm one who lives with integrity, who does what is right, who speaks the truth, who has no slander towards others, who does no evil towards others, one who takes a firm oath and follows it. Whoever does these things shall stand firm forever. Esayin harim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, oseh shamayim va'aretz. I lift up mine eyes unto the mountains and I wonder, from where shall my help come? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. For the Psalm 23, which brings us a message of God's comfort and God's presence at a time of loss. Adonai ro'i lo echsad v'deshet yarbitzeni, amei menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev, and cheni b'mag le'tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech b'geit salmavet, lo ira kita imadi. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He revives my spirit, guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. For yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. During this time of year, the holiday of Sukkot, we read from the book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes. Kohelet wrote so long ago, that there is a time for everything under heaven. There's a time to plant and a time to reap. There's a time to keep and a time to discard, a time for love and a time for hate, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to laugh and a time to weep, a time to dance and a time to cry, a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to speak and a time for silence, a time to seek and a time to lose. And so all of us who are gathered here today feel that sense of loss. So I just want to begin with my remarks by saying, this funeral is different for me than any other service I've ever conducted. Over 50 years as a rabbi. But when I came to speak with Cherry and Jason and Julie at their home the other day, I told them how different it all felt for me from any other call I've paid to a family in a similar circumstance after the loss of a loved one. And then it was Julie who said something that should have been so obvious to me. She said, that's because he was your friend. And indeed, I think everyone here can say that Kenny was a friend. I thought about that and realized that in all my years as a rabbi, I don't think I've ever officiated at the funeral of a friend before. I don't want you to get the wrong impression. I did like many of these people. But Kenny was a friend, as he so clearly was to so many of us. It's amazing, actually, how many people's lives he touched in so many ways. I especially got to know Kenny when he was part of a men's group that was formed about 15 years ago. I still remember getting the call from him. He was in Florida and I was at Seaport in New York with my confirmation class at the time. And he called and asked me if I would be willing to be a spiritual mentor to a few guys who wanted to talk about what life was all about. So the journey of what we came to call the Move Group began with Robert Berman, Bobby Cohen, Keith Solid, Larry Title, Larry Berman, and Kenny. At some point as things evolved, I was no longer a facilitator or mentor, but actually a part of the group, a member. And through the Move Group, as well as our trips together over the years to Poland and Israel, New York, the Eastern Shore, and in Florida, our studying and other interactions, I came to see and appreciate Kenny's many facets. He could be joyful and playful, as we all know, almost like a kid with his silly laugh and his playful antics. And he also could be serious, profound, and deep. He had a curiosity about him that would lead him to ask questions. As Cherry correctly put it, he was always striving to grow, to be better in whatever it was that he did. As one of the members of our group once said, I think it might have been Bobby, and with which we all agreed, Kenny would often be quiet and would be listening and taking things in. And then he would say something. Something, it didn't take a lot, but it was wise, it was profound, it was insightful, and something that shed light and that we all needed to hear and to reflect on. Kenny had that deep wisdom within him. So I want to do an exercise here, and if I were to ask everyone here today to conjure up an image of Kenny, just think about Kenny for a moment, and then picture him. And then if somehow we were able to project a big bubble above us where we could see what we all would have come up with, I think would all be the same for all of us. It would be that picture and that image in our minds of Kenny with his big, infectious, contagious, warm smile. That's the way we will always remember him, because through that smile that we all love so much and that we saw so often, thank God, and which we will miss, we could see the window of his soul. His warmth, kindness, sense of humor, decency, his integrity, his generosity, his affectionateness, his playfulness. All and more would be revealed and would be expressed by that image that each and every one of us has of him, which is the same. Because to know Kenny is to know all of these dimensions of his character and of the very essence of his life. As I'm sure everyone here knows, Kenny was a great athlete, and he loved to compete. And kids can correct me, but if I'm wrong, but I think he competed more with himself than with whoever he was playing against, because he always wanted to get better in whatever it was that he did, in his professional life, as well as in his personal life, and especially in sports. He worked hard to improve his game and practice, whether it was in tennis or golf. And I have to share with you, the family's heard me tell this, but my favorite golf story was the time I played with him at Lakewood many years ago. The fact that it was at Lakewood means it was many years ago. We were far from the hole, and it was a par 5. I was ahead of him, and I saw that his third shot was a beauty. Not only that, but it came onto the green, and it started to roll, and it actually went into the cup. And I shouted and told him he was so happy to get an eagle in this very tough hole. That was when Kenny started to become religious. Or if not religious, maybe a believer. At least for that day he was, let's put it that way. Kenny did not seek leadership, but it sought him. He was a leader, serving as one of the driving forces behind the creation of Capital Camps, where he was the chairman of the board for several years and helped to revive the camp. And he was so proud of how many young lives it touched and all of the kids who had a Jewish experience because of that work. I think of a passage in the book of Ecclesiastes when I think of Cherry and of their relationship. It reads, Tovim hashnaim min ha'achad, which means two are better than one. For should they fall, one will raise the other. But woe to hide the one who is alone and who falls with no companion with him. You were there. You raised him up in so many ways, Cherry, complementing each other, drawing strength and support from each other. The first woman, Eve, Chava, is described in the book of Genesis as Ke'ezer lenegdo. It's translated many different ways. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs translates it as a fitting partner. I like to translate it a little bit more literally. Ke'ezer, a helpmate, kenegdo, by his side. And if ever there was someone who fulfilled the meaning of being Ke'ezer lenegdo and the intent of Hashem, of God, in creating a helpmate, it was his beloved Cherry. Especially, but not only in these last years, when he was afflicted with this terrible, cruel disease, when so much of him was taken from us, but that never stopped Cherry. She was by his side every moment, caring for him, making sure he was comfortable, getting the best care possible, providing for him as a positive and making for him as positive a condition as was possible during this difficult time of life. But she wasn't alone. She had children and grandchildren who were there as well, and from whom we will hear shortly. And so now, as we lay him to rest, I want to conclude with another passage from the biblical text that we had studied in our group a number of years ago, and that I read with Kenny. It's especially appropriate, as it's traditional to read the book of Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes, which I mentioned earlier during the holiday of Sukkot. For it says, Hevel Havalim Amar Kohelet, futility of futility, all is vain. For in the end, what is there for man? In all the gains he makes beneath the sun, one generation goes and another comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets, and it glides back to where it was. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. And so the heart and the sea that we know is full because Kenneth Goldblatt was in our lives. Zichrono livracha, may his memory be for a blessing, as it surely will be. Let us say amen. I'd like to invite at this time members of the family. So first I'll invite Julie and Sophie to come forward. And Izzy as well, and Izzy also, sure, sorry.
As you're reading, you're reading your speech. Okay. Do you gotta do it now. Hi. Splendor in the grass, what though the radiance which was once so bright be now forever taken place? And bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, of glory in the flower will we grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind, in the primal sympathy which having been, must ever be, in the soothing thoughts that spring out of human suffering, in the faith that looks through death, in years that bring the philosophic mind. Sit down. You can sit down. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. My dad would be so happy and pleased. Okay. Again, I want to start by thanking everyone for joining us today. It's been a difficult year that we could never have gotten through without each and every one of you. You supported my dad, visited him, called him, fed him, and stood by him throughout this terrible disease. My dad has had a beautiful life, and it truly brings me comfort and joy to know you all have loved him throughout his almost 85 years. I wasn't planning on speaking today. I usually leave that up to my big brothers who are so well-spoken, but here goes. When I was thinking about my dad early one morning recently, the word that came to me was pride. I'm so proud of my father, Kenny Goldblatt, for so many things, but here are a few. First, Mom, his 59 years of marriage to you, Cherry. He was a devoted husband and adored my mom like no other. Until the very end, he wanted her and only her by his side. She was his rock and he was hers. They never said marriage was easy. In fact, they always talked about the many years they worked on their marriage. My dad wasn't perfect, but he was committed to his marriage, my mom, and to learning how to be the best partner he could be. They truly had a marriage that I not only admired and respected, but try to emulate, and for that I am so proud. My dad was an incredible oral surgeon. He started his practice in the 1970s and worked until he was about 80 years old. He probably removed most of the wisdom teeth in this room today. I had the pleasure of working with him for many summers as a teenager and saw firsthand his devotion and connection to his patients, staff, and colleagues. He was an expert at his craft and had the most caring and genuine bedside manner, which is why he was loved and trusted by so many. He woke up at 5 a.m. every morning for work and always ended each day by calling every patient he operated on that day to see how they were doing and check on their progress. He was loved, and for that I am proud. My dad was so incredibly generous, from opening up his home to many people, some perhaps in this room, to helping a friend in need, to his involvement in transforming capital camps and beyond. My dad was a giver with no conditions, and he did it quietly and never sought credit or recognition. He truly found joy in giving and making those around him feel seen and heard. He also helped me appreciate the joy and satisfaction generosity can bring, and for that I am proud. My dad was an incredible athlete and fierce competitor, whether it was golf, tennis, basketball, or baseball. My dad shined on the playing field, that work ethic again. He practiced and worked until he mastered his shot. When looking through his phone, I found at least 10 golf pros that have helped him with his swing and the shanks. He always strived to get better and never gave up, and for that I am proud. My dad adored his grandkids, soccer, basketball, and lacrosse games. He was your guys' biggest fan. He showed up, supported you guys, and was there to greet you with a hug. He would share his wisdom, or if appropriate, would not say anything and just listen. He was your papa, and he felt so much joy and love for all 9 of you, and for that I am proud. My dad was an incredible friend. Looking here today, I know my dad has touched each one of you in some way, even if it was to recertify your medical cannabis card. He was a devoted friend, a cheerleader for all. He had the warmest heart and the kindest smile. He had a calming presence and made you feel better when he was in the room, even if he didn't say anything. He was so silly and could make anyone laugh. He would talk to any stranger and be able to make a connection and put a smile on their face. And for that, I am proud. My dad faced this terrible disease with incredible bravery. Even towards the end, when it was hard for him to speak, I could still feel his love and kindness behind his beautiful eyes and smile. He fought until the end and never stopped saying, one day at a time. For that, I am proud. Whew, okay. Last, my dad was a devoted father. He may not have been perfect right from the start. My mom tells me that when the doctor announced, "It's a girl," she screamed with glee, whereas my father looked down quietly and said to himself, "What the hell am I going to do with a girl?" But he sure did learn what to do with me. My father and I worked on our relationship, and it grew into such a beautiful connection that I feel so proud of and will cherish forever. He loved me, and I felt it. He didn't need to speak. He would just look at me a certain way, and I knew he felt proud. He has taught me so much about parenthood, marriage, work ethic, friendship, generosity, and unconditional love. I will always hear you in my heart, Dad. I will always be your dolly, and I can't wait to see you in my dreams. I love you. Sure, I'm going to read Sophie's. Okay. Losing someone you love is hard, but it has taught me that I'll never really be alone. Because even though Papa is no longer here with us, I know he's still watching over me. I may not remember every moment with him, but the memories I do have are filled with laughter and love. One of my favorites is when we used to play Monster. Papa would pretend to be scary, but we would always end up laughing so hard we couldn't breathe. I loved you so much, Papa, from our walks with Riley to playing Monster to playing golf to being able to come up the street to visit you all the time, and now standing here speaking at your funeral. I carry all those moments with me. You will always be my hero. You will always be my monster, and I'll always love you. Thank you for everything, Papa.
Next, I'd like to invite Carly and Tatum to come up.
Does anyone have any hand sanitizer?
Okay. I'm not really sure how to put into words what Papa meant to us. His impact was truly beyond imagination. He had such a big presence in all of our lives, and his love and wisdom shaped our family in ways that words can hardly describe. Papa taught all of us grandchildren so much, not just through his words, but through the way he lived his life. He was wise, patient, funny, and always wanted to see the people he loved succeed. He was the kind of person you could count on for advice, and throughout our lives, he was always a text, a FaceTime, or a 10-minute drive away. Whether we were together for the holidays or regular dinners at home, Papa made every moment feel special. He had a way of turning ordinary days into memories we'll never forget, always filled with laughter. Papa supported us in everything we did. He was there through every stage of our lives, cheering us on at basketball and lacrosse games, helping us learn to drive, checking our teeth every time we saw him, and celebrating every accomplishment along the way. He was proud of all of us, and he made sure we knew it. I'll never forget the special memories we shared: alligator hunting in Florida, playing Monster in the basement, sushi dinners with you and Maga, and stealing pretzel rods from under your desk. Tatum and I would always fight over who got to drive your golf cart first, and you just laugh and let us figure it out. You were playful, joyful, and always laughing, and we promised to carry on your laughter wherever we go. Even in these past few months, when you didn't have the same tools to communicate, your spirit still shined through. We could always get you to laugh with us or at us, and we wouldn't trade those moments for the world. They reminded us that love doesn't always need words. Sometimes it's just a look, a smile, or a shared laugh that says everything.
Papa, we love you so much. We feel so lucky and grateful to have had you as such a big part of our lives for so long. You showed us what it means to be strong, kind, and full of love. We hope you are up there eating pretzels, watching golf, and smiling down on all of us. We missed you so much already, but your love will always stay with us. Thank you for being our Papa, for loving our Maga, and for giving all of us so much to hold on to.
I invite now Sylvie and Styra to come forward.
I just wanted to start off by saying how grateful we are to all have Papa as our grandfather. He always knew how to make us laugh, whether it was pulling a coin behind our ear or threatening us with the long-awaited wedgie that we all knew was coming. Stay safe out there. And to Papa, although the memories of those around you started to fade away, I know you always remember the love that you had for us, as well as we will always remember the love that we have for you. We will never forget the moments that we shared, and we're so lucky to live with you every day through our Father. Thank you for being a great man and an even greater grandfather, and we all love you so much. Thank you.
The last memory I have
of my grandfather. It was about 2 months ago. I was at his house and just small talk, and I said to him, I said, "What are you thinking about, Papa?" And he looked at me and he said, "When you were young." And even in his final moments, he was thinking about those he loved most and cherishing us as we cherished him. And I always find myself reflecting on how wonderful of a family I have, my siblings, my cousins, my aunts and uncles. And I think to myself, how in the world did I get so lucky? And I look up and I see my Maga and my Papa, and that's my answer. That's how I know. I'm so grateful for everything that you guys have provided for us and how wonderfully you've helped to raise us from so far away as we live in Texas and you guys in DC. Your presence was always there. And even though Papa is no longer with us, he will always live through every single one of us here. And I just want to say thank you. And Maga, I love you more than you'll ever know. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you.
And now we invite Jason to come forward. We'll be followed by Jeff.
My dad had an expression. It was good value, get good value. And we sure as hell got good value with this sanctuary today. To everybody that's standing, I apologize. Think of it as leg day Sunday. My dad had a coupon. What can I tell you? And apologies in advance, because this is, I have a lot to say about my dad. What a horrible way my dad arranged for me to see the most important people in my world. I'm overwhelmed with mixed emotions as I stand here. The incredible grief that I'm feeling at losing my dad, the disbelief that this is even happening today, and an immense comfort I'm feeling at seeing family I don't get to see very often and friends that are incredibly important in my life. I'm beyond grateful that so many of you are here today to honor, remember, and celebrate my dad. I know he would be so touched by the support you're showing to my family just by being here. Many of you came from really, really far away, like further than Rockville. And that's not lost on me. We have a nor'easter, we have a government shutdown. Apparently it didn't affect the private jets, but those of you that flew on coach, you made it, so thank you. You came today in the face of personal obligation and work commitments and great personal sacrifice to be here to support my mom and Jeff, Julie, myself, and our family. As my friends all know too well, I'm a big believer in just showing up for people in your life. It's my touchstone. And of course, who do you think I learned it from? That's right, Kenny G, who always showed up. So speaking for my family, we are beyond touched by your presence here today. I want to take a quick moment to thank my parents' caregivers these past few months. If you're here, a heartfelt thank you for showing my dad love and most importantly, dignity. To my dad's friends, particularly the ones who continue to show up for him day after day, taking him out, singing him songs, playing him music, driving him around, taking him to Woodmont. I don't have words of appreciation deep enough to appropriately thank you for your friendship and support. To Melissa, I couldn't have been the son to my parents that I've been these past few years without your understanding, support, and love. To my brother, I want you to know just how much I appreciate you and that I know how hard it's been being so far away, but you've done everything you possibly could to be there for Dad and Mom, and Dad knew that. Your many visits were always a highlight for him. Tough one. And to my sister, not sure where to start or how to appropriately thank you. The depth of sacrifice you make on a daily basis for our parents is immense and time-consuming. But you do it with grace, strength, humor, and deep love. You are my partner in care, my confidant, my friend, and I have overflowing amount of respect for you, and I just adore you. And to my mom, the Ferris wheel of life. You and Dad had the best for 59 plus years. A love that transcended your lives and was everything to Dad. That doesn't stop now, Mom, right? Jeff, Julie, me, and our families are the legacies of that love. And on, and on, and on. Okay. Again, sorry to everyone that's standing. The past couple years have been very, very challenging. There's no question about that. And the past few months have been outright painful as my dad's health deteriorated and his vibrancy and connection to the world slowly drained from his body. But today there is relief. He's free from that body and his illness, and I can now remember him the way I choose to remember him. That amazingly warm and infectious smile. He was a walking glass half full. A fucking walking glass half full was my dad. We're not in synagogue. A boyish bundle of positivity, enthusiasm and encouragement, and unconditional support who always had my back and loved supporting anyone or everyone with a kind word and a smile. So today I'm going to laugh a little at his expense and my own and celebrate that guy because I know he'd prefer our joy about his life rather than our sorrow over his passing. So let me just tell you a little bit about my dad and a few qualities, some stories, some insights into who my dad was, and a little bit of how he lived the dash in his life between 1940 and 2025. The first quality is generosity, both in resources but also in love. He gave and gave to his family, to many friends in need. They turned to him when there was nobody else to turn to charities, his beloved capital camps where he served in leadership, but got so much more than he gave. He was a camper at heart and a lover of Judaism, so it was a perfect match. He used to go out to camp with his dearest friends when camp was in session and marvel at the wonder of it all. It was inclusive and embraced children of all income levels. It really was his happy place. He and my mom, as my sister said, he and my mom also opened their home to so many who needed a roof over their heads and a place to launch from. Friends, loved ones, even strangers. I can remember coming home for visits as an adult. At times, it seemed there was like half my fraternity and their girlfriends were living there, eating my food, sleeping in my bed, sleeping with each other. What a mess. But my parents loved it. They never asked for anything in return, just friendship and a promise to pay it forward. I keep looking out and seeing faces. I'm overwhelmed that you got, geez Louise. The second quality is kindness. I worked in my dad's oral surgery practice one summer in high school. What a mistake. No idea why, but I agreed to clean dental instruments for a few bucks. With great respect and all deference to all the oral surgeons and dentists here today, I decided almost from the moment I walked into the office on day one that I didn't want to be an oral surgeon. It was bloody and gory and the smells. Ooh. So while my dad's hope of Goldblatt and Goldblatt as a future practice were dashed, I learned all I needed to know about the kind of man my dad was that summer. He was so talented for sure, but he was also so empathetic and kind, caring and supportive. And not just towards his patients, but towards their families, his nurses, and his colleagues. Really toward everyone. The guy who delivered supplies, the mail carrier, it didn't matter. He walked in the office. He was a force of positivity, optimism, and concern for his patients, many of whom are sitting here today, as Julie said. It didn't matter if you could pay or not, or whether it was during work hours or not. He was willing to help. He was dedicated to that, both helping people and healing people in their mouths or in their hearts. The third quality, it's a good one for you all, is patience and the ability to forgive. My dad was both of these things, and that was never more apparent than in two stories that stand out for me growing up. The first revolves around a car. My dad wasn't a fancy guy, but as a younger man, he liked to go fast. on the courts, in the games he played, sorry to say for the folks here whose teeth he pulled out, but in the operating room, and on the roads. And so he bought himself this gorgeous, shiny red Porsche 911 one day. It was his pride and joy, until it wasn't. I think I was about 14 or so, and we were likely headed to one of my basketball or lacrosse or soccer games that afternoon. He told me to wait in the car. Mistake number one. I waited as patiently as any teenage boy could, but after a minute or two of boredom, I thought it was appropriate for me to turn a little music on while I waited. Of course, the car was off. So I turned the key to get a little power, and unbeknownst to me, the car was in gear. It promptly lurched forward through the front wall of the garage and into our living room. I did what any responsible, God-fearing 14-year-old would do when they crashed their dad's 911 through the house. I started crying uncontrollably. I mean, who the fuck leaves the key in the car and the car in gear when there are teenage boys around? I remember only one thing from the moments and then hours thereafter. My dad's hug. Well, I know somewhere inside he was devastated to see his beautiful red car essentially totaled. He was more concerned and focused on me and whether I was okay. It was really a master class in parenting. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip that story. Okay. The fourth quality was supportiveness. Kenny G was an all-time fan. As I said earlier, he just showed up in whatever way we needed. And he showed up for me always. 2 more quick stories. Somehow he made it to every single one of my basketball games in high school. He always sat in the back corner, and he never really said anything to me. No yelling, no screaming, no criticism. If I looked up at him, he would give me a little bit of welcome direction, but that was it. When I was in the 6th grade, I somehow made the local Beltway League team. Remember that, Arthur? Johnny? Greg? There was no AAU back then. There was no EYBL. There was no NIL. There were no envelopes of cash. There was just the Beltway League team. I got cut more times than I can remember. One year, though, I actually made the team, but I rarely played. In one game, however, the coach felt sorry for me, or maybe everyone fouled out. He put me in for the first time in the second half with 5 seconds left, and my team inbounding the ball on the sideline with the score tied. I knew I was gonna crush it. I made an incredible, it's probably somewhere on video, an incredible cut to the ball to receive the inbounds pass. After catching it, I looked at the clock and got busy going downhill. Inside out, crossover, I had it all going on. It's hard to describe how badly I faked out my defender. But it was some move and he was outclassed. And while time was expiring, I drove down the middle of the lane and had an incredible floater finish in traffic to win the game. Or so I thought. Turns out there was no traffic. I guess I hadn't paid as much attention during the game as I should have. There's a fundamental principle in basketball. Shoot it at the opponent's basket, not your own. Well, sadly for that 11-year-old, I won the game for the other team. I remember 2 things vividly from that afternoon. One was the teasing and taunting I rightfully endured walking off the court. And the other was my dad's arm around my shoulder and the encouragement he gave me walking out of the gym that day. He helped me shake it off. For him, it was another glass half full teaching moment. It might have been the first layup I'd ever made in a game, as he told me. Another quick story of support. 3 years ago, I played in the Woodmont Golf Club Championship. I was in the A flight, not the championship flight, to be clear. I made it all the way to the finals. My dad asked if he could come out and follow my round. I knew how much he wanted to be there to support me, so I agreed. I was really nervous that day. It was my first golf tournament ever, much less my first final. Seeing him there with his phone strap across his chest, And the smile on his face somehow helped me relax a little bit, but it certainly didn't help my game. I was putting for birdie on the first hole from like 4 feet. Very makeable putt. I lined it up. I felt great. Sailed it about 6 feet past. When I heard from 30 yards away, "Jesus Christ, motherfucker!" and I literally was like, "Will you shut the hell up?" Like, I'm looking down the fairway. So I shushed him. I then proceeded to miss the putt coming back, and this time I heard a much more muffled, "God damn it." I think I 4-putted that first hole, but I got a great laugh out of it, and it helped me relax. We had a nice chat on the walk to number 2, and his behavior largely improved the rest of the round. I still have the picture from the Woodmonter newsletter of my dad standing next to me, trophy in hand, never prouder. Quality number 5, only a couple more. Kenny G was a lifelong learner. My dad was always studying, reading, watching videos, getting coaching, or learning about new things right until the very end. He enjoyed his continuing education courses. He was one of the first oral surgeons in the area to work with implants. He loved to practice his golf swing on the range or in the backyard. He watched countless instructional videos on the Golf Channel religiously. And eventually, after his oral surgery career was over and he was looking for something to fill his days, as Julie's mentioned, he started a medical cannabis certification business. Kind of funny for a guy who never smoked pot or used drugs. Quite a bit of irony given my dad's background. But he read everything he could get his hands on, anything about medical cannabis use, and really dedicated himself to this new cottage industry. And here is where the lifelong learner and the kindness and supportiveness trait merge. My dad loved connecting with people, and he lovingly helped people, but he also could be a little naive. So while my dad genuinely believed he was helping people with sleeping disorders and anxiety and stress and ADD and even more severe ailments, most people really just wanted to get high. Part of his process was to interview or consult with each new patient, and then once done, he would certify them to go purchase medical cannabis at a dispensary. He loved the connection. He loved feeling useful and supportive. And one of his first patients, a dear friend of mine in the audience, told me this about his first appointment with my dad. He thought it was going to be a box-checking 5-minute discussion. Exchange some cash and he could be on his way. But my dad began asking questions. How are you sleeping? What causes you stress? How's your career? What gives you anxiety? How's your marriage? What's your relationship like with your children? And on and on and on. My friend thought to himself, wait, are we really doing this? He just wanted to get high. But yes, he was. Why? Because he loved helping people. My dad made some of his closest connections later in life through these screenings. Rounding the turn. Okay. Playfulness, quality number 6. My dad loved to joke around. He loved to laugh. He loved to squeal in his own unique way. I saw it as a child with my Uncle Larry when the two of them would act like children on the beach. I saw it on the tennis court when playing a long, fun point. I saw it on the golf course when someone made a crazy putt. I saw it at home when he would play Tickle Monster, which is super creepy, with his grandchildren. He was a boy in an adult's body. There was no better example of this than in 1995 when I was arrested for allegedly committing indecent exposure in Washington, D.C. There's a long explanation behind the story, and to be clear, I was never found guilty in a court of law, but I did spend the night in the MPD Central Cell Block. I was well prepared for that, though, growing up on the mean streets of Potomac, Maryland. I got one phone call, and I called home, dreading the discussion with my parents. My mom was worried. Was I okay? Did I get any sleep? Was I safe? My dad, though, surprised me. I'll never forget what he told me. One of his best lines ever. He said, "It's okay, son. I used to streak across Castor Avenue all the time." Blew me away. Needless to say, I felt like I was off the hook, like father, like son, I guess. Where's Brian? Brian, I still need to get that expunged from my record. Final quality, if you can call it a quality, and that is smiley. My dad had the best smile. I've heard it from so many people in the past few days. It was boyish and handsome, captivating and welcoming, immediately put folks at ease. His smile was just so full and so deep. Makes me smile just thinking about it. One of my favorite smiles happened probably about 5 or so years ago, just as my dad started to become symptomatic at Woodmont. We were playing golf and got to number 3 on the south. For those that don't know, it's a par 5, lined with houses on the right side. We teed off. I was way left. He was way right. I hit my second shot. He hit his second shot. We went to our third shot, and he couldn't find his ball. So he dropped the ball, put one down. We finished the hole. We finished the round. Fast forward 3.5 hours later, and we're coming into the clubhouse. And I see David Dorn, the golf pro, and who is a friend, walking towards us. He asked my dad, "Dr. Goldblatt, did you happen to lose a ball on number 3? My dad goes, "I don't think so. I think I had a par on number 3. And David responds, "Are you sure you didn't lose your ball right into someone's yard?" My dad again says, I don't think so. At that point, David pulls out a golf ball and says, "Does this Titleist 1 look familiar?" And my dad says, "No, that's not mine." He said, "Well, does your ball say Kenny G on it?" It landed in someone's living room through a sliding glass door. My dad got the biggest smile on his face, and it completely diffused the entire situation. We all had a really good laugh that day. I will miss so much about my dad, the knowing faces we would make at each other, our own little language, the lunches here and there, the countless rounds of bad golf we played together. He used to call me after nearly every Duke game to tell me they were either winning it all or they were terrible and not going to make the NCAA tournament. He used to call me to ask when the Hornets were going to make the playoffs, which feels like never at the moment. He used to call me to discuss what he scored on the golf course that day and tell me about 1 or 2 of his best shots. He used to call me to tell me about all of his orthopedic issues, his bad shoulder, his elbow, his neck, his hand. He used to call me to ask about his computer, his car, his phone, his electric razor. But mostly he used to call to check on me. My kids, my body, my games, my stresses, my anxieties, my relationships, really just my life. And he always told me he loved me, every single time. Someone sent me this quote, which is an excerpt from a longer piece. And it reads, "When your father dies, you lose your umbrella against bad weather. May his son be your light." The irony of this sort of stormy day is not lost on me. I've lost the physical protection my dad could provide to me in life, but in death, he will forever be the light that guides my path. I see him every morning when I look in the mirror, and I smile right back. Love you, Dad.
Jeff, please.
For once, my brother's speech is longer than mine. Big family events, I've always taken time just to look around, to soak it up. Bar mitzvahs, weddings, I think it's important. And I wanted to do that because it means so much to me and my father and my family and my wife that you're all here and you flew in and you braved the weather. The fire marshal probably wouldn't be happy right now, but I know my dad is. He loved a good party. My mom told me a story a little while ago. At the end, he was getting a little unkempt, and so we used to have to struggle to get him out to get a haircut or a shave. And she was at the barber, and this man came up to her and said, "You look familiar, or who are you?" And she said, "Cherry Goldblatt." I said, "Oh, that's Dr. Goldblatt, right?" "Yeah." Well, I used to teach him golf at Lakewood, and he was just the kindest man, and I got so much out of that relationship. The cut went on. My mom went to pay, and they told her, "It's already been taken care of, Mrs. Goldblatt." My mom, to this day, has no idea who that person was. But that's part of the legacy of my dad. He touched people. And he made you want to do things that were good. And for that, we've all been touched. By the way, whoever told me that today was going to be this terrible nor'easter, I told you to listen to Bob Ryan more. It's not going to happen. Today is a great day for a funeral. There is a word that defined the life of my father, Kenny Goldblatt, and that word is growth. We talked about it, Stuart. My dad, he was committed to helping others grow, especially underdogs. But he was also very committed to his own evolution. That meant studying to be a better Jew. That meant religiously reading the Journal of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery to be a better physician. That meant consistent therapy and self-analysis to be a better husband and father. In fact, right up to the very end of his life, at the point when Alzheimer's had consumed his body, my dad was doing his best to find some way to grow, even if that growth was minuscule. During his final years, he would watch MSNBC pretty much on a loop, with the shows repeating themselves, because he told me at one point that he found the content to be interesting and stimulating. He would also play Sudoku nonstop to keep his mind sharp, to stave off the inevitable, to claw back at the disease that was trying to stifle his growth. You may not know it, but growth as my father's North Star happens to be dripping with irony, because my father told me stories about how his life started. Kenny Goldblatt, the only child of Charlie and Sophie, he was actually super small. Physically, he was so tiny that he used to sit on telephone books to see over the steering wheel when he first got his driver's license at the age of 16. Emotionally, he told me he didn't mature until he was well in his 50s. Just the other day, I took the time to watch a video that I shot in 2018. I interviewed Mom and Dad, knowing that one day I was going to really cherish this material. I finally had the bravery to watch it. My dad was as handsome as ever that day, with his dark tan and his infectious smile, and my mother, beautiful in her own right. Well, she filled much of the conversation over the course of an hour she was apt to do. But what my father did share was truly insightful, not only about the early chapters of his life, but about the growth he committed to in his life. My dad was 23 when he met Mom, and she was 18, and lavalier to someone else whom she'd been dating since the 7th grade. Now, for those of you who are out there and you're unfamiliar with this term, lavalier means she was pre-engaged, and she was technically off limits. But Kenny was charming, and he was a handsome guy, and he recalled the day during that video that he was walking on campus at Temple Dental School when my mom, wearing her white scrubs, caught the attention of my father, who remembered thinking, quote, "God, she is really cute." She recounted seeing him too, but they didn't talk that day. And so when my dad ended up calling her for a blind date, she was quietly hoping that it was the cutie that she spotted on campus. She told me that she wasn't entirely sure about the identity of her blind date until he walked into her dorm for that first date, wearing a cream-colored tennis sweater with an olive green V. Remember that, Mom? She told me, quote, I took one look at him and I was done. That was it. I was fried. If only it were that simple. Let's fast forward now to their second date. My dad, he had a couple of drinks that night, and he decided to drive my mom home. He would tell me, I wasn't drunk, but I was definitely very silly. Silliness was one of his hallmarks in his life. Quote, it was a very quiet, lonely road, and I started driving on the opposite side of the street saying, I'm in England, with a bad accent, I'm sure. Mom proceeded to get hysterically anxious, saying, Kenny, you're not funny. Dad told me the more anxious she got, the more I drove on the wrong side of the road because I was very immature. My mom claimed at that point she was done with him. 59 years later of marriage says otherwise. After that story, I went on to ask my father, what was the key to a great marriage? And his response was, quote, every couple should be seen by a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a rabbi, priest, minister, and find out the tremendous difference between males and females. You don't think. Because if you can't accept that, you're not going to stay married because we're so different. And I'm still learning after all these years of marriage. There's that growth that I talked about at the beginning of my remarks. My father would not, he could not sit still. He always had to grow. He was committed to it, and he hated the status quo. So when he didn't get into medical school, what did he do? He pivoted to surgery, but through dental school. When he saw an opportunity in the late 70s to dip his toes into a new and largely untested concept in dentistry, he took that chance. My father would be the first surgeon, actually, to work with dental implants in the entire DC metro. And he ended up establishing a study club with other dentists to learn about this revolutionary advancement that permanently restored teeth to patients with severe decay and bone loss. When he retired the first time, after 47 years of serving patients, he became bored almost immediately. And even though he had long sold his stake in his oral surgery practice, he went back to work for Dr. Rick Williams. By then, the Alzheimer's was advancing to the point that Dad could not perform surgery, but he was happy just being there, consulting with patients, growing, and then also helping others grow. At the same time, in his late 70s, Dad launched an entirely new business. I helped him with the logo. Wasn't that good, but he loved it. Green Choice MD. If you needed medical marijuana, Kenny G was your guy who would help you get your certification. Mind you, he didn't smoke the stuff himself. He just told me he wanted to help people, that this was a way for him to help patients in pain, especially underdogs whose growth had been stifled. I always marveled how my father paid it forward. He was such a good and decent, hardworking man. Even after long days, he would spend time every night of the work week as an oral surgeon calling patients to check in on them. How are you feeling? Remember to gently rinse your mouth out with warm salt water to expedite the healing. My father gave me and my siblings everything we asked for in life, but most importantly, Dad gave everything to us and to me, what I needed emotionally. There was one word that my father would often tell me when times got tough, and he would say, perseverance. When I got bad breaks, he would call me, and that call would end with him saying something like, keep at it, remember, I love you. Perseverance. He would remind me that he believed in me, but that I had to keep believing in myself, that I had to keep growing. It has really lifted my spirits the last few days to hear from family and friends with stories about my dad and to hear how my father impacted your life. In fact, I probably get more upset when I hear from you guys and hear all that love. I obviously get upset thinking about my dad, but when I see how much love other people have for him, that gets to me. One friend told me, quote, Kenny was a giant to me. He made me laugh. He made me feel safe. He made me feel important. Another friend who's getting married this weekend in Florida and couldn't be here sent me a text. Quote, I know that you always knew what a special man you had for a father. He helped and shaped so many lives and was one of the sweetest and kindest men I have ever met. The irony is, I'm going to be able to be the man and husband I was always meant to be because of what I've learned from your dad. And I also want to share this snippet with you from one other exchange. This is someone who I'd not met until my father's passing. This was with Javi Goldshire, and I hope I pronounced your last name right, but she is now CEO of Capital Camps and Retreat Center in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. And my father was board chair of the camp, which is a nonprofit from 2000 to 2003. And he led the initiative to transform that camp into a premier overnight camping experience for Jewish youth. Not just Jewish youth who had money, plenty of Jewish kids who could not go to camp if it weren't for Capital Camps. Capital Camps was my father's proudest philanthropic achievement because the camp was about to shutter for good when he got involved. And now there are more than 800 kids every summer who get the gift of camp, partly because of my father's fundraising legacy. My father loved his many years at Camp Akiba as a child, and he would have loved to have been a lifelong camper if he could have just figured out a way to make that happen. And he loved being Jewish, and so to align those two foundations in his life, it was just very meaningful. So Javi wrote to me, quote, I met your father in early 2018 as I was joining Capital Camp's team, and made me appreciate that no aspect of camp came easily to our community. It was through his passion and commitment that Capital Camps was not only able to survive during the very difficult years, but thrive. He thought big about the capabilities and reached deep in the community to make it a reality. I know every day that myself and the team are stewards to his vision. Some of my favorite memories are being in his presence and hearing his stories, and know that the struggle is always worth it. Thank you for sharing Kenny with the Capital Camps community. We will find a way to mark Kenny's dedication on our campus. Before I take a seat, I want to tell my mother, Mom, you're an amazing human. You're kind, you're brave, and you always did what was best for Dad until his last breath. Dad, you would be humbled by all the people who showed up today for your send-off. You were not someone who searched for the spotlight, but the light always found you anyway because you gave your all every day. Look at the tremendous legacy you created with your 3 kids, Jason and Julie and myself, all finding tremendous spouses in Melissa, Alan, and me with Lori Page, and having wonderful, loving marriages, partly because of the example you set, which led to 9 amazing grandchildren, Carly and James, Styra, Tatum, Jessie, Jarett, Sylvie, Sophie, and Izzy, all of whom love their fun-loving, soft-hearted, and super kind Papa. At the end of my interview with my father and my mother in 2018, I asked my dad, what do you want to be remembered for, Dad? And he responded, that's a good question. And then he took a long pause before picking up his thoughts. As a good husband, good father, good friend, somebody that believes in philanthropic things, I like helping people. Dad, as we start this chapter in life without you, which is so hard to believe, I want you to know that I will love you forever. You are the best dad, a best friend, the best husband, and the best papa. And I know that everyone here feels your greatness too, and that your growth impacted our growth. And you made all of us better people in some way, shape, or form. And for that impact, we are all eternally grateful.
I know you are. You got it.
Wow, we've heard such unbelievable words. And that's what it's all about. We talked about the dash between the time of our life. And this is it. It goes on, and door, from generation to generation. In the end, the love we take is the love we make, in the words of John Lennon and Paul McCartney. And it's so very true. So very true on this day, when our hearts are filled with sadness, and yet with the gratitude of having had Ken Goldblatt in our lives, back from the words of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, where he writes, I observed all that God brings to pass, and I further observed this word of wisdom. Enjoy happiness with the woman you love, all the fleeting days of your life that have been granted to you under the sun. All your fleeting days. For that alone is what you can get out of life and out of the means you acquire under the sun. Whatever it is in your power to do it with all your might. For there is no action, no reasoning, no learning, no wisdom in Sheol where we all go. For I further observed under the sun that the race is not won by the swift, nor the battle by the valiant, nor is bread won by the wise, nor wealth by the intelligent, nor favor by the learned. The race is not won by the swift. And so that race, that journey of Ken Goldblatt's life comes to an end, but it does not come to an end, for he lives on in our hearts, in our souls, in our memories, in the generosity and the way in which he touched not just our lives, but even beyond. Our congregation, B'nai Tzedek, has a kitchen, the Goldblatt and Cooper kitchen, because of Kenny and Jerry's generosity. And children go to camp because of their generosity. And we haven't even mentioned FIDF, which they've contributed to as well, and so many other ways, quietly. And so at this moment, when we lovingly remember and honor the blessing that was the life of Kenny Goldblatt, the companionship we shared, may we be grateful. May we be grateful for the strength and faith that we hope will sustain us in this hour and this time of bereavement. Indeed, though he's beyond our sight, he's not beyond our mind. So let us not despair. God is spirit and of flesh, source of life and its mysteries. The cup of sorrow has passed into our hands. Our loss pains us. We search for meaning. Yet even in the midst of sorrow, we give thanks for the comfort that others bring to us on this day. May the love that flows through each and every one of you help us to face, help Kenny's family to face the tasks of life. For love cannot be severed by death. The friendship we shared along life's path, for the gifts of heart and of mind, all of which have now become a precious heritage. For all these and more, we are grateful, O God. May we not dwell in our sorrow, but rather honor our beloved by how we live our lives. Baruch atah Adonai, B'kor HaChaim. Praised are you, O God, source of all life. And we say, Amen. In just a moment, I'm going to ask that we rise for the El Malei Rahamim prayer, with which this part of our service will conclude. We'll then proceed to the interment, which is here at Judean Memorial Gardens. Although I'm told it might be a little bit far for walking distance. We'll get instructions when we head out. The family will be receiving friends and well-wishers at Jason and Melissa's home. The address is on the pamphlet there at 7012 Arundel Road, and that will come immediately follow the interment. And then going through this evening when there will be a Shiva Minyan at around 7:15 or so tonight, which we hope you'll be able to join us and attend. Let us rise now for the El Malei Rahamim prayer. We ask, dear God, that you bless your children so that they may ease their burden of sorrow, so you may send them light and peace. For as we pray, El Malei Rahamim, Shochen B'Hamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nochona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזכור הרקיע. מזהירים את נשמתו של אלקנה בן צוריאל, שהלך לעולמו, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים הסר וסת כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. O God, exalted and full of compassion, we ask that you grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence, among the holy and the pure, the soul of our beloved Kenneth Goldblatt, who is now gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and the righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated as we now receive our instructions.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for your overwhelming show of love and support for Dr. Goldblatt and his family today. Due to the number of you here at this service, we are going to ask that those of you who are able, please walk to the gravesite. As you head out the front doors here, you'll proceed to your right down the road. There will be staff from the cemetery to help direct us there. You'll be looking for a blue tent. It is not the tent that you can see immediately as you exit the doors. Those of you who do need to drive are welcome to. We just ask that you wait for the hearse and family to proceed before joining in behind them. If at this time I can have anybody serving as a pallbearer, please come forward to assist us.
Please rise.